So, guys, welcome to the Global Sports Injury Conclave and the DDF. And it's all in conversation with the Hammerman, Richard Madley. He was the one the IPL looked after for 11 years. So, season one until the season 11, the choice of everyone on an auction day, one would only hear and wait to hear from Mr. Richard Madley because he was the one who used to speak the heart out. And the most importantly, the exciting point of the auction was when he used to call up the price. And finally, we used to hear that hammer. So that's why we called him the Hammer Man. The second generation auctioneer from Wales, which was extremely great to know because we have got a small history from Wales as well. And moreover, uh, he has also been to US and he was in the US for 10 years. So, Richard, I would like to know the entire thing from you before we start everything to do with the IPL and the auctioning.
Well, what a pleasure it is to join you today, Nishant, and to my many friends and followers in India. I come from a family of auctioneers. My father was an auctioneer, and my father-in-law was an auctioneer. So you could say that auctioneering was in my blood. I was born and bred in Wales, in Cardiff, the capital of the Principality, a city that I believe that you know well, where my father was the local auctioneer. He sold principally real estate. He was a property auctioneer, but he also would sell chattels. That's furniture, pictures, silver, carpets, and clocks. And I was rather in awe of this man who could stand on a rostrum and speak firmly and loudly and count quickly and make money and at the same time have fun. And I thought maybe one day I might be able to do that myself. I set off then on the road to train as an auctioneer. I left Cardiff and I went to London and I started at the very bottom of the auction ladder, which is as a porter. Yeah, I was a manual worker, unloading the lorries, setting up the furniture, I worked hard from the very bottom until 20 years later, on my 40th birthday, I was appointed the president of Christie's East of New York. So in 20 years, I went from porter to president, which might be the title of my new book.
Fantastic. And what I learned also that you are a former junior hockey player.
Yeah, cricket was and still is my love as a sport, and I was reasonable in terms of the standard that I played at. I was an enthusiastic and busy wicketkeeper batsman. I modelled myself. I had two heroes, and one was the local wicketkeeper for Glamorgan. Was a very unassuming and very efficient glove man called Ivan Jones, and the other, who to this day is still my favourite Indian cricketer, well, after MS Dhoni, that was Farooq Engineer. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Farooq had come over with the Indian side in 1967. He liked it so much he got a contract at Lancashire. Farooq is still at Lancashire today. I think he's still in the bar at Lancashire today,
Yes.
but he is an institution. So
Yeah.
I had a love of cricket, but I guess I was a more talented hockey player.
Hmm.
So I played international hockey. I represented Wales at under 19 and under 21 level. I joined the full Welsh squad. It was my aspiration to play at the Olympics. That would have been a goal of mine. Then I saw the competition and I realised I was not going to make the squad, and I needed to get a proper job. I mean, in those days there was no money in sport then at all. So I put the hockey to one side, having played in the European Cup, having won the home championships, and became an auction room porter instead.
Fantastic. And you were you suddenly became the national property of IPL, and every year people were waiting to see you at the auction. So, how did your journey of Lalit Modi's IPL, the first IPL, how were you picked for the first time?
A little known fact about the IPL and the formation of the IPL, which took place in the summer of 2007, and it wasn't at a cricket match at all. It was actually at a tennis match. It was at the Lawn Tennis Association Championships at Wimbledon,
Yeah,
where IMG have a huge influence. And their guest that day was a man called Lalit Modi, who had come to watch the tennis. And as always, as you know, Nishant, in an English summer, it rains. And during one of the many breaks in play, Lalit Modi was talking to one of the senior executives of IMG about cricket in general, especially cricket in India, and how he had this vision to revolutionize the game. The man he was talking to was a man called Andrew Wildblood. Andrew was IMG's senior vice president in charge of cricket. And he listened to what Lalit had to say about his plans for, as I say, revolutionizing not just cricket in India, but world cricket by creating some form of competition whereby the world's top players could participate in a short tournament once a year. When IMG realized how serious he was about it, they returned to the office the next day and sat down and called in some of the best brains within IMG, people who had experience of franchise operations, especially in America, basketball, American football, baseball,
yeah,
and they
right.
and they they hothouse this concept of creating a cricket league which was franchise based, and the franchises could be sold off, and then the world's top players could be invited to participate, and as opposed to a slightly boring draft system that is used in American football and indeed in the 100 in England, they thought, well, how
Right.
about an auction? How about an auction?
Yeah.
And it was decided that an auction would be a great idea. And when they actually were formulating the plan, they saw who do we know who could actually help us structure the auction? They needed somebody who actually understood the mechanics of auctions, somebody who was used to bidding to increments, to putting together conditions of sale. So I was called in to advise, just to give them some advice on how an auction is structured, how many lots you have, how you break it down into lots or to sets, the conditions. And I went in purely for one day to give them advice on structuring auctions. And I spent the day with them, and they told me about how their idea was to auction off cricketers. They had already committed; they'd already got commitments from 80 of the world's top players to participate in this auction. These players had heard about how much cash was involved, and of course, they didn't want to miss out on that. And at the end of the day, I drove back to my home 100 miles away, and then overnight came an email with the framework for the IPL auction. And they asked me what I thought, and I said, I gave a couple of tweaks to it and said, it looks perfect. Whereupon, somewhat surprisingly, they said, have you ever been to India before? And I said, no, I haven't. I've always wanted to go. And they said, well, we'll get your passport picked up this morning by courier, and you'll be coming out to Mumbai. The auction is next week. Bring your
Right.
hammer with you. That's how it
Fantastic.
all happened.
Yeah. So it was a good start because you were coming every year. So now the start happened. So did you make any special preparations for the first auction?
I think it's fair to say, Nishant, and I can speak on behalf of almost everybody involved in the first auction, that nobody had any idea of what a success it was going to be. We were all working a little bit in the dark, and we look back now, and it really was very amateurish. And I still, to this day, have the souvenirs from that first auction. And the paddles that were held up, which nowadays are wonderful illuminated works of art, were little bits of polystyrene that had been cut into circles, and someone had tried to make them look like table tennis bats. And they had just amateurishly printed Bengaluru
Mm,
on it. So the teams had no names. All you had
mm.
was the name of a city on a bat. So the level of preparation that I had for that was minimal. Now, I suppose the upside to a small auction, and it was a small auction, that first auction, there were just 84 players, and the majority of the players were international cricketers who I
Yes.
knew, not personally, I knew of, and I knew about their expertise, and of course I knew how to pronounce their names, and so therefore, I would think I was in a good place for that first auction. In later years, I would, when the list became 3, 4, or even 600 players or hopeful players in the auction, I had to work a lot harder on preparation, of pronunciation, and
Yes.
expertise. But for that first auction, believe me, people might say they knew better, but they didn't. The world was caught by surprise by the phenomenon called the Indian Premier League that day.
I was just about to ask the question about pronouncing those Indian names. Did you mastered it?
I don't know. My audience would have to be would have to judge there.
Judge.
Um, if I didn't know the name of a player, I could ask. I could always ask someone from BCCI. But I actually asked the waiter who was serving me breakfast before now with some complicated, obscure players' names. And the thing was that player might not even be drawn out of the bag that day, because as you know, often there's 600 hopefuls, and it gets whittled down to 300. But we then move to the accelerated process. So there's lots of hopeful players whose
Right.
names have been put forward, who are, I'm afraid, casualties of the auction, which is why I've been able I have a souvenir, obviously, of every auction, and you will know
Yeah.
that the players' names get drawn out in the form of cricket bales
Yes.
with their
Yes.
names on
Yes.
them. Well, the winning bidders get to keep the names of them, and I have many souvenirs of unsold players who never
Yeah.
made it onto
Yeah.
the IPL roster.
Yeah. I'm sure when you fly from UK in the aircraft, you might be remembering some of the names. How do you pronounce them? Because some names are really tough. I'm sure. Can you also take us to the first auction which happened where MS Dhoni was sold out for 1.5 million? Do you remember? It's a 12-year-old incident. So do you still remember the fact of the first auction where Dhoni was sold for 1.5 million?
Oh, right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome
Right.
to the IPL. Okay. Right. So I've got to give a bit more. Okay, that's okay.
That I will ask you to do after sometime later. That's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
last part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we'll do that. So we're going back to the Oberoi Hilton Ballroom then, February 8th, 2008. Yeah. My first of all, it was hot. I found it incredibly hot. I don't. There was air conditioning, but there were so many people in the room, technicians and the press and the media, and I started before I'd even started the auction, I started to perspire,
Yeah.
and I thought this is not a very good look for the British auctioneer, who is sweating before he even gets on stage. And so a very nice assistant in the hotel took me down to the ladies' beautician area, where upon a very nice beauty therapist made me up, and she put a pancake of makeup all over my face, which she called the wedding. It was a wedding makeup, she described it. And it meant that nobody would see one bead of perspiration on my forehead all day. Um, and I got onto the stage, and I think probably ignorance is bliss, Nishant, in a situation like that, whereby I didn't know who some of those people were who were sitting in front of me. And there were 8 tables there, obviously. And there was a lot of fuss when one man walked in, and all mini hysteria. His name was Shah Rukh Khan. Now, obviously, now, or very quickly, I soon realised, that I was in the presence of an icon of the Indian stage. And then a very nice lady walked in, and everybody stood up and bowed, and her name was Mrs. Ambani. And how would I know who Mrs. Ambani was? But of course, I would say, "Good morning, madam," in the same way as I would politely to anybody in England. And of course, as the story unfolded, I realised that I was in a room full of people, highly influential people within the world of India and Bollywood and industry, but who meant little to me. And I think that was a good thing, because otherwise I might have become slightly overawed by it. So it was, I would call them sir, I would call them madam, and I would thank them for their bids, and I'd be very polite, but I gave nobody any preferential treatment just because they were the world's leading Hollywood actor or one of the richest people in the world. So it was only, I guess, afterwards when I went into the press conference, and I think I'm trying to think. I think Anil Kumble was in the press conference with me, and he said in his entire career of being involved in Indian cricket, he had never witnessed such hysteria within the media, not the fans, within the media after that first IPL auction, where I say the world of cricket changed forever on that day. Things were never the same again, and as the story then unfolded around the world and moved from Mumbai to London to Sydney to Kingston, and that the whole thing became viral. I mean, I'm sorry, it's an appropriate or inappropriate term, but yeah, there was it caught on and moved very quickly around the world. So the first player out of the hat that day was Shane Warne. And Shane Warne, with a reserve price of $400,000. Remember, in those days, he sold in US dollars, and his published base price. So I asked 400,000 to start me off. Who'll give me the opening bid of 400,000, and up went a hand, and it was the Rajasthan Royals.
Yes.
And it was Manoj Badali, the shrewdest bidder in all 13 auctions. Very shrewd, very shrewd. Anyway, I thought, well, we're having an auction now. Any advance now? I'm looking for an advancement, and nobody else bid. And I thought, well, at least he sold. The Rajasthan Royals have. Maybe he's a bit over the hill. Maybe Warney is a little bit old, but bang, he was sold.
Yeah.
So he was the first player out of the bag. Now, it's very, very interesting. Now, I mean, it wasn't that long ago in my mind, but it was pre-social media. Do you know what? There's no footage of me pulling out the pulling out the ball as it was then for Mahendra Singh Dhoni. And
Yeah.
I believe I got all the sheets in my office because I've kept all the paper records. I think he came out third, but again, nobody knows. We've talked about it on Twitter. So
Yeah.
Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Now here is a player that I was he was a bit of a favourite of mine. If I'm allowed to have favourites from the point of view, a wicket-keeper batsman, not because of particularly who he played for, but and again base price. Again, we started him off at 400,000.
1,000.
And there was serious bidding. Now we had an auction going because whereas Warne had sold on the reserve at 400,000. So for Shane Warne, now we're at 425, 450, 75, 500. But what I was trying to do and what I perfected at the IPL, I gave I call it telegraph bidding. I was describing the auction to the blind man sitting at home in front of a television screen or even listening to it on the radio. So it was important that I gave a commentary and told the audience where the bidding was coming from. Now the bids with Kolkata. Remember, they have no teammates. I've got a bid with Kolkata. So all those fans from Kolkata are thinking, we're going to get Dhoni. We're going to get Dhoni. Oh, no, you're not. Now Chennai come in. Now Chennai come in at 550, at 550. New bidding now. Where's it come from? Bengaluru. So you're thinking, you're trying to paint a picture for that audience who aren't there, and those fans, all of whom thought they were going to get Dhoni that day. But alas, there's only one winner in auctions, isn't there? And on that day, the hammer came down at $1,500,000 sold.
Really? I still remember because if you know about Dhoni, Dhoni's idol was Adam Gilchrist. And in this auction, Dhoni was the highest who went to CSK, Chennai, and then the second was Adam Gilchrist who went for 700,000 to Hyderabad.
Yes, he did. Yeah. There you are. I've learned something. I didn't know that that Gilchrist was Dhoni's idol. But I think, well,
idol. Yes, it is.
Name two better wicketkeeper batsmen ever. I don't think there have been.
Yeah.
Not even my friend Farouk Engineer.
Yes, indeed. But the irony is, Dhoni was paid double the amount of Gilchrist to come into the first auction. So, which was again a good part we can talk about. Now, quickly, I want to go and ask you, of the IPLs you have been doing for so many years, which has been your favorite team, oblique the favorite player?
Favorite team and favorite player. Well, good questions, and I have been asked both these questions on numerous occasions, and I think in terms of favourites, it's a very bland answer to give, but it's a very truthful one. I haven't got any. What I have got with what I've developed with each of those 8 franchises, and the other 2 I didn't really bond that closely with them. I have developed a very strong relationship with each of those teams, and they are all very different in the auction arena. They all have different styles of bidding, but they all have individuality, and I have developed a rapport with each of those teams in the auction over the period of 10 years, so that I have a friendship, I have a good relationship. I enjoy going to watch their teams, but I generally have no favourites. I mean, I will sometimes tease KKR if I've seen them and they've been a bit slow in bidding, as we've had a couple of incidents over the years when the hammer has come down and then the paddle has gone up, and so I slightly tongue in cheek, I might tease Becky slightly to see if he's got a faster bidder for the auction today. Yeah, and then Kings 11 Punjab. Well, who knows what? I never know what's going to happen with the Kings 11 Punjab, and neither do they. I don't think
I
either.
know.
So there's the sense of the unknown when you're dealing with the Kings 11 Punjab. You know, Chennai Stephen Fleming always had a plan. You can see he just didn't get phased. He was cool, and so yeah, each team in the auction environment has its own individual styles, and so I've got only friendships there. I think. With regards players, just huge admiration for MS Dhoni as a cricketer, as an individual, as a man that I respect hugely, and someone who I met, and I met him shortly after the auction, and he, along with somebody who also was equally humble and I just thought totally charming, was Gautam Gambhir. I met them both after an auction, during the tournament. I just was very, very impressed by the way that they composed themselves. They were very, gentlemanly, very professional, and yeah. No real favourite players. Of course. I watch a lot of IPL. Because the timing's over here in the UK. So I've
Right.
probably watched over the last 12 years, watched more IPL games than any. And of course, watching Chris Dale or David Warner,
Yeah.
just bashing it around, on a rainy
Yeah.
April in here in England has been great to watch. So lots of great players, lots of great teams, but I like them all. There you go.
Yeah. Actually, they are a treat to watch. Watching both Chris Gale and Warner batting, and the new guy like Aaron Finch coming and whacking out is a treat to watch. I totally agree. Now, Richard, I want to understand that how much time did it take for you to acknowledge that you have got enormous number of fans in the country? People follow you, and people follow you pretty strongly. When did you realize that you have become a celebrity in India?
Social media was almost non-exist when the IPL started, which is,
Yeah.
as I said, which is incredible. There's no footage of that first auction. In fact, I don't think there was much footage of the second auction when we went to Goa and Freddie Flintoff and Kevin Peterson came under my hammer. So I think it was when I went to my first IPL game live in Bangalore, which was IPL 1. It was
Yeah.
that amazing opening game, which no one will ever forget. It was the KKR against RCB,
Yeah.
and the extraordinary innings by Brendan McCullum. As I walked up to the ticket office with my wife, before the game, people were coming up to me and just wanted to say hi and wave, and I was thinking, gosh, how would they know me? And of course, they'd seen it on television and they'd seen it in the newspapers, and that has got more and more as over the years. So much so that if I go to a restaurant, to an Indian restaurant in London or Cardiff or Newport or Bristol, they're all cricket lovers, and they know me, and we talk, and they love the fact the IPL Auctioneer has come to their restaurant. And then Twitter takes over from there, and once I started to embrace Twitter and share a few things with Twitter that the fans hadn't heard before. I tweeted about the first ever auction, and I published my auctioneer's sheet that day, and it got 9,000 likes. I mean, it was just it was extraordinary. So social media yeah, made it. And people have told me, they've stopped me in the street, and there was one man walking through the hotel with his charming wife, and he said, Mr. Auctioneer, Mr. Auctioneer, I must tell you something. And his wife was with him. He said, watching the auction is the best thing in my life, ever, ever. And I looked at his wife, and she just nodded her head or shook her head. And he said, I book my holiday every year, and I make sure I have a day's or 2 days holiday, so I could just watch you take the auction. It is far better than the cricket itself. Uh, so
You're
yeah,
right.
it takes.
I know what you're talking about, because the Indian fans are really, they're very intense to the celebrities. So you have actually become a big celebrity. People have been talking about you all across, and obviously when it comes to India, we cannot miss the kind of food you had. Did you like the Indian food in India?
I love Indian food, especially in India. I mean, as you know, in Indian food in the UK now, yeah, is the most and has been the most popular uh, takeaway and restaurant food for many
Yeah,
years. But I'd experienced good Indian food. Remember living in America, the good Indian restaurants, not so many of them, but good Indian restaurants in America where I lived for 10 years. But then coming to India, and just the array of vegetables, and the choice and the range and the color and the smells and the taste. It was one of the great perks of being able to travel to India, was to enjoy the food. I did, however, I've got to say, and I was very careful how I looked after myself in the run up to the auction. Remember, I came from I come from a British environment, quite mild food, and therefore I'd have to be slightly wary of any sudden changes to my diet, especially as I was about to go on stage and conduct the world's biggest auction. So in the run up to the auction, I was very, very careful about what I ate. I didn't
yeah,
drink alcohol for at least a month before the auction. I got fit, and when I arrived in India, I was very, very careful in what I ate, because I had to be on top form to get on stage and conduct the
yeah.
auction. Once that was all over, I just ate like there was no tomorrow. I tried everything, and I would stay on and sample restaurants, be they in Bangalore or Mumbai or Chennai, or when I travelled back to India to watch the IPL, I would. I even eat street food. I'm that local.
Yeah. So most of the auctions have happened in Bangalore for sure, and few names I will just read across, and you would remember them probably, yes or no, I don't know, because it has been a while. So some biggest hammers have been MS Dhoni, Kevin Peterson, Andrew Flintoff, Yuvraj Singh, Pawan Negi, Saurabh Tiwari, Jaydev Unadkat, Mashrafi, Mustafa, and go on. The list goes on. So all these names make the biggest of the TRPs in the auction, because a lot of people are glued to the TV, because the first 60% of the auction becomes very interesting, because there is a fight for buying of the players, and all the biggest celebrities who are the owners of the team are also involved in the buying and selling. So your final take on the TRP of auction, and how did you felt about it?
Yeah, every auction has its own story, and each of those players who you've mentioned would have been the highlights of the first, second, third, and onwards. So there is always one key story, and it could be a surprise. It could be a disappointment. I mean, do you remember when Sourav Ganguly went unsold in IPL 3 or 4, I think it was 3. And up until then, all we talked about in the IPL auctions was about these amazing high prices and how many millions of dollars. And then you had a hero who was rejected. You know, we had a different story, a different drama. Sourav Ganguly, nobody wants him. Rejected by KKR, and I could look around that room and say, none of you. I mean, I could see there was almost a sense of guilt on some of the faces of the bidders. But that's the interesting part of the drama of the auction. Is it's not just about the player who makes big money; it's the player whose career ends that day as well. So every one of them, every single auction has a story. Each of those names that you read out, I can remember them all for various different reasons. And people will remind me that the most memorable auction that they ever went to was when I dropped the hammer on Yuvraj Singh to play for RCB, and as my hammer went down, up went the hand of KKR.
Yes.
We had, oh my goodness me! So now we had a bidding dispute. Now this is what TV is all about: a dispute between Vijay Mallya and alas, Shah Rukh Khan was not in the room that day. But you've got two big teams locking horns. Dr. Mallya telling me that the player was his, and the KKR saying that they had entered a legitimate bid. So this is the test of an auctioneer now, because remember, there's no second umpire. I can't go upstairs. I can't review it. I can't go on. So I've got to make the decision. I've got to make the decision, and I made my decision, having contemplated it carefully, with all the cameras watching RCB, KKR, and me. And this is when the little roll of sweat just drips down the side of your face, and you're thinking, Richard, this is the test of a good auctioneer, to sort out a potential dispute and do it fairly, equitably, in a gentlemanly manner. And I made my decision, and I stood by it, and I'd stand by it today. So again, a great memory. I wouldn't want to do that every day, but every auction's a story. And the greatest coup for the BCCI and the IPL and Lalit Modi is no one ever realised that the auction would be the greatest marketing tool for the IPL tournament in the world. You couldn't buy that amount of advertising. You couldn't generate that amount of PR just by one man standing on the rostrum once a year with this in his hand and saying, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the IPL player auction." And that's it. The world was captivated, and battle could commence.
Can we hear that again? The welcoming of the auction, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the IPL player auction. I'm Richard Madley, your auctioneer for today.
Superb, fantastic.
There's the trademark, and everybody loves it. Whenever I see them, they want me to say, "Here we are now. The bids at 1,500,000 now for MS Dhoni at 1,500,000 sold."
So you've actually become a habit. I'm telling you. Why there is a fan following? Because people, the kids, the youngsters, the elders, the people who watch IPL as entertainment, they all look upon you, because the auction has become the sorted area people wanted to go and visit, and people would like to go on the TV. So now I will not go to the controversial part of it at all. And just last question: what are your current engagements, especially during the lockdown period currently?
Yeah, the lockdown has been a quiet period for all of us. I have a number of things that I have been working on. I have been asked if I would be interested in writing a book. if I would share the story of my career as an auctioneer with an emphasis on the IPL story. That would be a big chapter. So that is one of the things that I am working on, is fleshing out the bones to a story about my career. In terms of my business, I'm an antiques and art advisor, so I'm busy doing online appraisals. I've just started doing physical inspections again, and most importantly, I can walk from my back garden to my cricket pitch in the village that I live in, and it's great to see. I can see the youngsters getting back in the nets now, and I can't wait for the season to start. It may be very late because I'm now a qualified ECB level 1 umpire, and I'll be able to umpire cricket matches in the local leagues here where I live.
Oh, fantastic! Now you have got an option of sending the decision to the third umpire.
That's indeed. Yeah, yeah. But the finger goes up as opposed to the hammer coming down.
Fantastic. Now I'll read out few of the comments which has come from the various teams. So Rajiv Khanna from Rajasthan Royals has written, "When we think of IPL auction, we think of Richard Madley. He was the face of IPL auction for a long time. He witnesses yet being firm, quality to engage everyone in the room is beyond comparison." Fantastic.
Thank you.
Then we have from Joy Bhattacharya, KKR. He was superb and really set the tone up for the IPL in the first auction. I remember how he played up Dhoni's bid team by team. He was a perfect auctioneer.
Thank you.
Then it comes from Avinash Vaidya from RCB, the Royal Challengers Bangalore. Given the experience he had, Richard was adept by assessing the pulse and gave the necessary impetus to big buys of every auction. Obviously, he was good at understanding the needs of broadcasters and ensured complete entertainment. He did give occasional slips, but that who doesn't do it? He was fantastic.
Wow.
Then the last one comes from Satish Menon from Punjab. To say that Richard Madley was a speaker would be undermining his position. It's an understatement because of very few people as look as Mr. Madley is undoubtedly he knew how to carry himself through a whole session. He holds everyone attention, keeps the flow right. He was completely a person of certain character, which was befitting a very good auctioneer, a very good speaker. He was extempore, has a personality which is extraordinary. So I think people have very high regards for you in comments as well. So
Well,
it's a fantastic one.
well, there are some fantastic accolades there, Nishant, and thank you, and yeah, and that makes me feel very humble, and I think that I know that they represent some of the people that I have met in India, of cricket
Yeah,
fans and followers who've also said just very very nice things, and but but when they meet me and they want to talk to me and have their it's this is what they want to see. See, I carry the IPL gavel with me, and they always want to have a selfie with
yeah,
the gavel. So the gavel is synonymous with
yeah.
the auctions, and that's the little trademark. But those are very kind words indeed, and I'm very grateful to you and to the whole of India for making me always so very welcome.
So I'm telling you, India actually misses you because your accent, your acceleration to the peak point of excitement is missed in the country, and we hope you are back to the system soon. Uday will just show you a few things. So this is what we had in original. So this is Shane Warne for 450,000 Jaipur, MS Dhoni for 1.5 million Chennai, Adam Gilchrist 700,000 to Hyderabad, Shoaib Akhtar for 2,500,000 to Kolkata, Maira Javardhane 475 million to Mohali, and Muthiya Muralidharan 600,000 to Chennai. Well done, Mr. Richard Madley. We applaud you the way you conducted 11 seasons of IPL. It's not a joke. It is highly emotional. You were upright, you were stand, and you were just a signature of IPL. Salute to you. All the best. Have the best life ahead. Enjoyed every moment of interview today.
Thank you all. Very, very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Will be better. Thank you, Ji. You did well. I'm telling you. We had a great session.
Thank you, Nishant. No, that was great. Well, you fed me some good questions. Thank you very much, and made it very easy for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's it's a story that I'm waiting to tell. If it translates into a book, albeit, but there is a story. It is a great story.